So good afternoon, everyone. Great to have this opportunity to tell you a little bit about iSMA Controlli. And I'm head or president of the iSMA Controlli U.S. operation, and we'll give you a little more context around who iSMA is exactly here in a second. So you're certainly welcome to ask certainly very welcome to post your questions as we go along. And talking to Nicole about it, she suggested that she'll try to capture them in the chat, and we'll cover them in detail at the end of the presentation. So the overall agenda is first just to introduce who is iSMA Controlli, and then we get really the rest of it is about products and software tools and training associated with our products. So the name iSMA Controlli may be new to many of you. Certainly pronouncing our company name can be a challenge in and of itself. So we tend to go with iSMA as the way to do that. But we're really two businesses. We are a building automation business that's out of Gdansk, Poland, right on the Baltic Sea. And then we have a valve and actuator business called Controlli out of Genoa, Italy. And the two companies got together formally in 2021 and merged, but we're very much a privately held company. We're quite well known in Europe and have had quite a lot of success over there. And like a lot of businesses that want to go worldwide, the company made the decision to do that. And we set up an official U.S. operation at the beginning of 2023. So in case you do have the opportunity someday to go to Poland and visit our factory, this is what it looks like on the outside. So we do a complete, all of our engineering, all of the board production and components, and everything is done in Gdansk as far as building automation. And today's presentation is going to be strictly on the BAS. I'm not going to go into the valves and actuators at this time. So interestingly enough, the iSMA business is relatively very much a new company. So we started out very much like Cochrane Supply as a tritium distributor in Poland in 2009. And from there, we then got very excited by the opportunity that Niagara represented, became an OEM partner with tritium in 2012. It moved on to developing products in 2015 and launched our first Niagara-based controller, the MAC 36, in 2017. Along the way, however, we started building I/O modules as early as 2010, and you're going to learn more about those here in a few minutes. So being a manufacturer became an early part of our business, but relative to the tritium side of things, that became a real product for the first time in 2017. As I mentioned, we merged the businesses, iSMA and Controlli, in 2021 and formally started the U.S. operation here based out of Virginia in 2023. So I find the easiest way to tell our story about our product line is just to use the classic system architecture that I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of. So at the top end, we resell the Niagara supervisor software. Nothing particularly special about that, other than we do offer a workbench that has been branded iSMA Controlli, but that's not a requirement. So one of the things to appreciate about us is our tool set that is used in Niagara is available to operate on any workstation type. So it could be, it can be an OEM like Johnson or Honeywell. Of course, it could be a Vicon. It really doesn't matter. So we have many different libraries and tool sets that work just fine in any workbench tool on the market today. At the level of Jace, although we resell, iSMA does resell Jaces, I'm going to assume all of you know know about JACEs, so there's no really reason for us to talk about that. But what we do want to talk about is our Niagara-based controllers. So these run a full stack of Niagara N4, and we have two versions, the Mac 36 NL and more recently the Mac 36 Pro. Since I don't have something physically to show you here, you can just compare the 36 NL to a JACE 8000 with 36 points of I/O built in. Literally, this from a size standpoint is essentially the same size footprint as a JACE 8000, but it includes 36 points. And then the Pro, it has the horsepower, maybe even arguably a little bit more horsepower than a JACE 9000, again with 36 points of onboard I/O. But more on that subject in a second. So what has been very successful for us has been the development of I/O modules. And we have three families, what we call the mini series, the mix, and the max. They are multi-protocol, meaning that they support BACnet and Modbus, and it can be any mix of RS-45 or IP. Again, we'll go into more detail in a minute. And then another unique thing about iSMA that is available to you all are displays. We have a family of touchscreen displays in various sizes, in various mechanicals, both industrial and a version that's designed for finished spaces. And one of the key things to understand about our displays, as well as our I/O modules, they can be used with any automation product pretty much on the market. So as much as we'd love you to sell, obviously, the entire range of iSMA products, the key point to understand here is, and the takeaway is, those of you already, I'm sure, have existing relationships with other vendors, and you can take advantage of our displays very much so. And the same is true for the I/O modules, since they support open protocols, both BACnet and Modbus. At the unitary level, we have, at one point in our history, we had developed a couple of products based on Sedona. Several years ago, we decided to pull back on further development on Sedona and instead went our own direction. So we have our own programming environment, or software framework, if you will, called NanoEdge. And NanoEdge is an IP-based environment. And the first product that we introduced 2 years ago was called the Rec 18 IP. You could think of it as a product that'd be ideal for something like a rooftop unit, or a heat pump, or maybe in some cases even a fan coil unit. And then this summer, well, before I say that, so the Rec 18 has 18 points, but it expands, of course, with all the same family of I/O modules. And then this summer we introduced, for the US market in particular, our first integrated actuator version of a VAV controller called the VAV14. And so as I go through today's presentation, I'll be going into detail on each of these products so that you learn really what they're all about. But this gives you kind of the big picture and how it all fits together. Now, needless to say, not all projects need a supervisor. There are a lot more smaller buildings than there are large ones. And so one of the nice things about the HMI panels is that can become the user interface for the facility. And so a Mac 36 controller with an HMI panel on it, now you have your operator interface, you have your control system, and you can expand it with I/O modules as well as controllers. So this becomes a nice answer for the millions, literally millions of small to mid-sized buildings that are out in the market today. Okay, so now let's take the next step and dive into each of these product offerings. So the master controllers, there's the Mac 36, which has a single RS-45 port, and then there's the Mac 36 NL, which actually has two RS-45 ports on it for larger projects, or for projects that need, say, Modbus and BACnet. So that would be a good reason to choose the one with the dual RS-45s. But the fundamental question is, why? What makes the the Mac 36 an interesting product? Well, for starters, it's a high performance platform. It's a Linux-based product with a 32-bit dual core processor. So it runs quite quickly. It has the 36 points of local I/O, so you don't need to mount both a controller and something like a Jace and an I/O module to do control. It's all in one nice simple device. It's very much expandable. We actually test expansion up to 5,000 points for the NL. And with the recently introduced Mac 36 Pro, that goes up to 10,000 points in a single controller. So you have support for both local and remote displays. And a unique feature is that the SD card that's in the controller, you can pop it out. And when you do, and let's say you had a hardware failure on the controller, you replace the hardware, you put the SD card back in, and you're done, because the SD card contains both the license and the data backup for that device. So no need to reload your controller if should there be a hardware problem. And then there's LED indication on all of the I/O right from the panel itself, so that you can just walk up to it and see what's active and not. Breaking it down, as I mentioned, we're a Linux house for the Mac series, and it's a dual core 1 gigahertz CPU with 4 gigs on the SD card, 1 gig on the RAM, 2 Ethernet ports which operate independently. You've got your 1 or 2 RS-45 ports. And what's very unique is the HDMI and USB ports on here. You can connect a local display that's HDMI compatible, and we sell one of our own style and size, a 10-inch, that plugs directly into the Mac 36. So your PX pages can go right directly to that display, connected locally to the Mac 36. Okay? You've got the 36 points, and I'll break those down in a minute. And as you can see, we've been doing this a while, going all the way back to 4.4 for Niagara, and we've recently released our version of 4.15. So it's 24-volt powered, has all the U.S. recognized and Canadian recognized listings. And when you break down the inputs, you have 16 universals with built-in temperature tables. So it's very easy to select from a variety of thermistors and RTDs, but you also have the option for voltage and current inputs and dry contacts. And resolution that you can vary between 12 and 16-bit. And then we have 4 dedicated pulse counting digital inputs up to 100 hertz. So for doing, say, submetering. And then on the analog output side, we've got 8 0 to 10 volt analog outputs, which can also operate in a pulse width modulation fashion. And we have 8 relay outputs for your digital loads. Excuse me, COM port wise, you've got 1 or 2 RS-45 ports, as mentioned. You have the 2 Ethernet ports, your USBs, 2 of those, and then your HDMI. So as you can see, you can support a full range of essentially interfaces right from the Mac directly to your computing devices and displays. So it's quite an interesting controller from that respect. Okay, I mentioned the LEDs. So on the cover, you can see right across the top, you have all your inputs, and on the bottom, you have your outputs, as well as power, run status, your COM status, etc. What's interesting, however, is you can pop that little cover and it exposes dip switches and a couple rotary switches. And these are optional for your use if you see a need. So for example, you could pre-program on the bench with multiple applications, ship out the controller, and then using the dip switches, choose the particular application that would be appropriate for wherever the device is headed. Similarly, you could adjust parameters just through the dip switches. So it's there for your use. They're all optional. They do not take up any points, if you will, from your Niagara licensing. So they're a fairly nice, handy option to have from a deployment standpoint. And then if you are using our what we call our PD 10C display, there's a property sheet built right into Niagara that makes setting it up quite straightforward. Software-wise, so we use Tritium's standard licensing scheme. You can go as low as 3 devices and 50 points to get started. And then you can go all the way up to 100 devices and 5,000 points for the core license on the Mac 36 Pro. The NL caps out at 25 and 1250, but the Pro will take you all the way up to 100 devices. And that's the core license. You can expand from there using Niagara's license upgrades. And the licenses are accessible, of course, on Niagara Central for you. Now, what we did introduce earlier this year was a couple Edge license options from Tritium. So for the NL controllers specifically, you can get their what they call their Edge licenses, which gives you 5 devices and 100 points, or 5 devices and 150 points. And when you compare this to, say, the Mac L100 that you see above, we're talking a price tag that's half the price of a traditional license. And oh, by the way, Edge licenses don't require an SMA. And we really lobbied hard to get these to get this option from Tritium so that the Mac could be aimed at these small to mid-sized buildings that are out there that need, all the horsepower and feature set of Tritium. But in many cases, people would rather not on equipment control in small buildings. They'd rather not have to deal with the SMAs and the renewals of all that. So, which is understandable. So, we did introduce about a year ago now the Mac 36 Pro, and it's same size and shape, if you will, of the Mac 36 NL. What's the difference? The processing. We went from a dual core to a quad core, from a 1.6 to a 1.6, doubled the OS from a 32 to a 64-bit, doubled the RAM, doubled the flash. Okay? And so otherwise, from a hardware standpoint, it's the same product. And as a result of the performance, when you are connecting a screen directly to the HDMI port, it just operates faster, as you would expect. It's the increased memory and storage means you can put the Mac through on much larger projects, and it's really ready to go as far as all of Niagara's constant improvements to its feature set. So it's very much, I'm sure everyone in the Niagara community is moving to Niagara's 9000 platform, and this gives you this is our version, if you will, of a 9000 with the built-in I/O. Now, one thing we just released with 4.15 is we've built into the Mac 36 Pro a VPN client. It's an open source product called WireGuard. And so what's nice about this is it gives you secure access to the Mac 36 Pro from the internet. So this is a free of charge client. If you want to take advantage of it, you need to build out a matching WireGuard server on your side. But this is a wonderful way to gain secure access over the internet to a Mac. Okay? We just added this feature about a month ago. Okay, moving on to the HMI panels. So we have a 10-inch display that's designed specifically to plug into the Mac 36, either the NL or the Pro. It's rated IP65. So what does that mean? It means from an environmental standpoint, it's really designed to be in a mechanical room. You would typically cut out a space on the cover, if you will, of the control panel, and then connect it directly into the controller on the inside. So that's the idea of the PD10C. Now, what has proven to be very successful is our family of Android-based panels, again in the IP65 packaging, and there are 3 sizes: a 7-inch, a 10-inch, and a 15-inch. And these have the option of being communicated over Ethernet or over Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi is built right into the panel. And so These panels can work with any HTML5 source. So you're certainly not limited to talking to Macs or Jaces. You can really any product line that offers web serving, including if given access, you can go out the internet and say get a weather service or get access to other sites over the internet if you're given if the building owner allows that to happen. Okay, and it's a one-to-many. So if I have on site multiple Jaces and multiple Macs or some combination thereof, and I want to create a navigation to each of those individually, you can do that all in the built-in software that comes with the panel. So the software we call Smart View and allows you to create that navigation environment, provide password protection for individual users, control where the users can go, what they can do. So it's proven to be very very successful and very effective, both from a performance and a price standpoint. And then again, about a year within this year, we introduced two more Android versions, but in this case, the packaging is designed for finished spaces. So typically these would be mounted on a wall, maybe in a corridor or outside a conference room. One of our European customers has put these in each of 200 hotel rooms. And that has become the interface for every, a person visiting that hotel or staying at that hotel. So what's also very attractive about these is this light bar. As you see on the bottom right, you see the red outline. That is a controllable color that you can manipulate in your software to indicate, say, a conference room is occupied or there's an alarm condition associated with a system somewhere in the building. So these, particularly the 10-inch, is selling extremely well. Both of these units are priced very competitively, and so I encourage you to take a hard look at our LED display options, both the 10-inch and the 13-inch. Okay. Any particular questions, Nicole, that maybe I should answer at this point?
None in the chat so far. You can unmute yourselves if you do have questions, comments. Anyone test the product yet? Or any feedback or anything from the audience? Well, I will ask a question.
Sure.
You had mentioned something that was just released this month for the Mac controllers.
Right.
Can you go over what that was for me?
Sure. It's called WireGuard.
Yeah.
So WireGuard is an open source, what they call a VPN client, okay, a virtual private network. And so you can just Google WireGuard, it comes right up. So we built that into the Mac 36 Pro. It comes with every Mac 36 that you order, Mac 36 Pro that you order. And what it would allow is, say, a systems integrator who has multiple Macs that they're servicing across their client base. It would give them a secure way to access the Macs from, say, their office. And that's what's very attractive about it. They would need to set up a dedicated server for the server side of WireGuard. But again, it's open source software. But once they have that, they can now ensure their customers that they have secure encrypted communications to the Mac controllers and then subsequently to anything downstream from it.
That's very cool. Looks like we have a couple of questions. Joshua,
Sure.
you want to go ahead? Are you there? I see you're unmuted.
Just a second. Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yeah, we
my
can hear
headset
you.
disconnected for a moment there. For the SD cards, are
Yeah.
you allowed to essentially substitute, like say during the life cycle of the product, the SD card dies at some point? Are you allowed to use a consumer off the shelf SD card, or are there
No,
like,
you're actually not. Yeah,
okay.
because we do match up. See, the license is on the SD card,
Mm-hmm.
and so we need, and that's where the host ID exists. So no, you have to. We, we don't charge a lot for the SD card, so
Mm-hmm.
it's really not a big issue.
So
But yeah.
can you not disk image these? Like, are they not like standard technology SD cards? Do they have additional like write endurance?
Um, the best I can answer without, because I'm not as knowledgeable about what you're really asking, other than to tell you whenever the question has come up and I've
Mhm.
challenged the technical team, the answer comes back, no, you have to use one of our cards.
There's a
All right.
special boot process. They're kind of like the Jace SD cards, and they look for
Mhm.
the special sauce when they boot up, and
Right.
they're all coming from Tritium.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
Kevin?
Hey, Steve,
Hi,
can you hear
Kevin.
me?
I sure can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, this WireGuard server
Yeah.
is really interesting.
Hmm.
Does it, if you have it hooked up into a Mac 36 Pro
Mhm.
and you're attached to a site's IT network,
Mhm.
does it bypass their IT network, or do I need to open up any ports
Yeah,
on their network?
I would assume that you're going to have to, that IT is going to have to open up a port for you to get access to it.
Okay,
So yeah, because otherwise they're going to block it. Right.
that's right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it kind of worked like TossiBox, because TossiBox works on the outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I can't tell you specifically, but I'm assuming that you'd have to have a port that's open.
Yep.
I'd be happy to. I know we've documented in the latest manual how the WireGuard works. So all of our documentation is on ismacontrolli.com. And that's and the manuals, everything's available there. So probably worth me reading up on it as well.
That's
Just
all
came out.
online. Yeah,
Yep,
it's
it's all
all online
online.
then.
Yep.
Cool. I'll
Yep.
give
Oh
that a
yeah.
review too.
Yep.
Other than that, I've used many of the HMI panels in the field, and I have nothing but good things to say about them.
That's
So
great.
Good.
just offering feedback.
We love feedback. Thank you, Kevin. And Kevin,
Yep.
if you don't find the answers you're looking for, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or your sales rep, and we'll get a deeper dive with someone smarter than Steve and I today.
No worries. Thank you guys.
Yep.
Thank you. There is a question in the chat. Do the
Mhm.
displays support multiple users with different access restrictions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
primarily using your Niagara users, right, Steve?
Yeah. So for example, a service technician would want to be able to get to things in a panel, for example, or get access to more detailed information than, say, a tenant. And so each user has individual permissions, if you will, to what they can access. You bet. Okay, so why don't we continue on with the next one up, which is the IO modules. So as I mentioned, we got into the IO business really out of the gate, and um, from a Tritium standpoint, their IO16, IO34 were essentially proprietary communications, and we saw an opportunity to go with open protocols. And so the first product that came out of the gate was called the Mix series. It was basically a competitor to the IO16 and IO34. And then from there, we developed the Mini series, and more recently, we announced the Max series. But they're all multi-protocol, BACnet or Modbus, 485 or IP. In other words, BACnet MSTP, Modbus RTU for the 485, and BACnet IP and Modbus TCP on the IP side. all 24 volts, override switches on wherever there are outputs on the mini series, the LED status lights, a single tool, no cost configuration tool. And I should point out on the configuration side, if you're doing this in a Niagara environment, the same things that you would do with what we call our iSMA configurator can all be done from your workbench. Okay, and it's all listed properly listed for use in the U.S. and Canada. Okay, so let's go into some detail on the different series. So the mini series, we have essentially 14 versions, 7 in the 45, 7 in the IP. You have dedicated digital inputs, dedicated universal inputs, a mixture of inputs and outputs, 4 and 4, and then dedicated relay outputs and dedicated tri-state, or triac rather, outputs. Okay. So, and the only difference between the two columns is one's 45 and the other's IP. These have proven to be very, very popular for lots of reasons, price and performance. But yeah, so the mini series is by far our top seller of the I/O module families. And the ones that have the inputs and the digital outputs also have this capability of turning into essentially standalone controllers. There is built-in logic, if you will, configuration logic in those modules. In other words, ones that have 4 digital inputs and 4 relay outputs, or 4 universal inputs and 4 relay outputs. You can configure them so that, say, you had a parking lot with an exhaust fan that you wanted to kick on and off based on air quality, for example. That logic can be set up right inside the module. There's no licensing involved, and should you lose communication over the bus, it acts as like a standalone controller. So continue to do its job locally. So that's really a positive thing. And there's a built-in web server that makes it possible for easy troubleshooting. And that's so this describes the mini series. The mix is our alternative, if you will, to the IO16 and IO34 from Tritium, but there's available an 18-point and a 38-point, and both in a 45 and an IP, and then a mix of inputs and outputs. And then on the Max series, which came out about a year ago, this was we saw what was happening in the data center market, where there's a much higher demand for digital inputs and outputs, and we wanted just a more cost-effective solution. So that's why we developed a Max series. So it's really about getting the cost down for these high-density digital in and out type applications. Should you get into a situation where you've got a lot of Modbus RTU to talk to, like for submetering as an example, you can take any one of our IP modules, and it becomes a gateway to Modbus RTU. So that can be very handy and when it comes up. Now, for sure, Modbus is a heck of a lot more popular in Europe than it is right now in the BIS market in the US. But nonetheless, there's definitely still our RTU work out there, and we're fully able to support it. Okay, that's I/O modules. Now the unitary story. So we developed our own control engine called NanoEdge. It's designed around IP as the backbone protocol. So it's an IP protocol, okay? And it can connect up the Rack 18 and our recently introduced VAV14. And we've got a third product coming out next summer, essentially called the UAC 28, which is essentially a big brother to the Rack 18. And so now gives you a feel for the unitary environment that we're offering. If you're as a Niagara user, if you will, you're used to block programming. Well, NanoEdge is block programming. So there's really very little learning curve to start programming in NanoEdge, which is terrific. Let's break down some of the feature sets starting out on the Rack 18. You've got a mix of inputs and outputs, universal and digitals and analog outs and digital outs and triac outs. So it can be really is ideal for something like a rooftop. It has 2 Ethernet ports on it for the backbone, and they operate in a fail-safe feature, meaning if there's any kind of failure to the hardware, the network has a relay that's basically creates continuous communication up and down the bus, which is very important for sure. And then you've got a USB-C port built right into the controller, so you can take your laptop tool, plug right into the Rack 18 and program it directly. And you can do that on the bench. You don't even need a power supply. The power will come directly from your laptop to allow you to program the Rack 18. It communicates to our CP series room panels for your sensing. The tool is called IC Tool, or you can use what we call NE2 Link and plug that into your Niagara browser, rather Workbench, and you can program in NanoEdge either from a Niagara Workbench or from our standalone tool. There's a real-time clock, of course, and there's what's called multi-threaded cycle-driven applications. What the heck does that mean? Well, that means I can adjust the scan rate by application. So I can take a Rack 18, use it, say, in a room control situation where I'm controlling maybe a rooftop or a fan coil unit for that space, and then and scan that at maybe 1 or 2 seconds per update, and then use that same controller to do lighting control and do that in 1/10 of a second. So you can have very fast scans or much slower scans. It's up to you, but it allows you to adjust the scan rate based on each particular application. Again, you can expand the Rack 18 up to 150 data points, and even go way beyond that from what's called network points, which are points that would not get communicated up the network to, say, a higher level device such as a MAC36 or a Jace. Okay, so I mentioned we came out with our first version of a VAV product back in June. It's called the VAV14 IP, and it is, again, like the Rack 18. It communicates over IP, over BACnet IP, and it has a built-in differential pressure sensor, up to 13 additional IOs, both inputs and outputs. It has that same dual Ethernet design for failover, and communicates to our control point wall sensor for adjustments of the device itself, as well as things like balancing. But we're not stopping with the IP version. We've got on the development board both a T1L version and a 485 version of this product for the future, and so we're looking forward to that coming out in 2026. Now, the big thing to appreciate about the VAV14 is the options you have from a software perspective. So you can roll your own, meaning fully programmable NanoEdge, write your own block programming in our tool, and have the controller do anything and everything you want it to do. Okay. In most cases, however, you're going to take advantage of our built-in configurations. And so we have an application library of over 200 different possible application configurations that you can instead just use a configuration wizard to select, as well as adjust the parameters. And so the iSMA configurator tool has a wizard option, as does the Workbench wizard that we provide you. And taking that even a step further, these little windows on the front here expose dip switches. And one of those dip switches is used to select one of the many applications that come with the controller. So from a deployment standpoint, you can basically ship this into the field, tell the tech which dip switch or switches to select, and now it's set up to run that application. And then you can use the space sensor to actually adjust your or you can go over the network and adjust the actual parameters. So the dip switches or the configuration wizards will let you set up the versions of the VAV that come essentially pre-programmed with the various applications. I referred a couple times to the control point wall panels, and they're available in a couple different colors and 2 different flavors. One that's designed really for the Rack 18, where you might have, various fan speeds, whereas the black one you see here is really designed for the VAV product, in that it accesses menus, including a balancing menu, so that you can adjust everything right from the sensor itself. The sensors are designed to work to communicate to the controller over a 45 network, and they do that over Modbus or BACnet, and you can daisy chain them. So I can actually daisy chain 5 sensors to a VAV14 as an example, for doing averaging of space sensors. So and as you see here from a sensing perspective, you can have temperature only, or you can add in both humidity and CO2. And I know you'll find that our pricing on the sensors is very competitive. I mentioned block programming. On the left is what the tool looks like inside of your Niagara workbench, and on the right is what the tool looks like inside of IC Tool. So other than a little bit of the shape of the block itself, it's identical. And so there should be a very little bit of a learning curve, if you will, to start getting to work using our NanoEdge environment. And the only difference with the VAV is that you can see these programs, but you don't have to adjust them if you're using the pre-configured applications. Speaking of which, here are the major ones that are available. Your cooling only, cooling and heating, different types of heating, of course. You've got series and parallel fans. So these are the major, box types, and all told, we estimate up to 216 different variations on a theme, if you will, for the different types of VAV that's out there. Okay. So we have quite a future plan for the unitary world. There's another, as I mentioned, a controller called the ZAC 28. They'll be coming out next year. And there's even one that we're considering bringing into the US market that is going to be designed for lighting control, taking advantage of the Dolly protocol. So it'll be interesting to see if there's some demand in the US market for Dolly. That's been particularly popular in Europe, but less so here in the US. But we're definitely going to offer it to the U.S. market and see if there will be demand for it. Okay. To finish up, I just want to talk about our software tools and libraries. So one of the things you're going to, I think, appreciate about iSMA is the fact that anything we build software-wise is available directly on our ismacontrolli.com website. And it's all free of charge and no licensing restrictions at all. Okay, so basically there are a variety of libraries for your Mac 36 workbench, and then for the HMI, the SmartView software comes built right into the panel itself. There's nothing to install. You just connect to it and set it up. And then your I/O modules, the tool there is called iSMA Configurator. But again, the IC lib, what we call IC lib, is a component library that is designed to work with your I/O modules as well, so you can set up your modules right from your workbench. And then NanoEdge products are done with either IC Tool or with NE2Link. So again, everything you see here is accessible from our website, and there's actually a single tool called IC Connect that you can load on a laptop, and it will, that means you no longer have to go searching for our software on our website. IC Connect is a single app that lets you find whatever it is you're looking for amongst our library of software tools, and lets you immediately download them to your laptop. Documentation-wise, we have what we call the Download Center on ismacontrolli.com, and we organize it by these various categories. And then when you select a category, like for example, the Mac 36, you're going to find data sheets and install instructions and graphic libraries and manuals and mechanical drawings, a whole host of things that that are available for any and all to take advantage of. And we even have a nice search utility that lets you type in the request for a document or request for a topic. And if it's a topic, it'll search the various manuals and point you to where that information is available. And then to wrap up today's presentation is product training. So largely, as you might expect, to take a class in Poland might be attractive in one sense, but the reality is the majority of our training is going to be done via e-learning. And we have a variety of classes for the Mac 36, for your I/O modules, for your various panels, your Nano Edge products, as well as your VAV. Most recently, we just added a nice e-learning class for the VAV 14. So all of these classes are free of charge, and we haven't announced it yet, but we're going to provide very focused instructor-led classes on products like Nano Edge, as an example. That will be essentially a 2-day class for a small class of maybe 5 to 8 people at a very, very affordable price. We're looking forward to doing that. It's going to be rolled out here in a couple months. So, but it would be done online, and it would be led by one of our trainers out of Poland. And so if you do want to organize a class that would be instructor-led, we will be offering that in the near future. And that concludes today's presentation. So I would just ask for what additional questions have come up in the second half of today's talk.
So one in the chat is, do you offer a dual VAV application? Good question, Ivo.
I don't think so, but I'm going to find out. Yep, that's a very good question. Dual VAV. Does it include? Okay, what else?
That is the only one I have in chat.
Okay.
Anybody else want to unmute yourself, ask any questions about the application controllers, I/O modules? Any feedback on any of the other products?
Generally, the parts availability, what kind of lead times would we expect for the product line?
Yeah, our operation here in the U.S. includes a full warehouse of all the products. We, of course, Cochrane stocks as well. So we basically are there to facilitate our partners like Cochrane. And for the most part, for small quantities, 1, 2, 5, 10 pieces, we generally ship next day. For large orders, we do need to go back to Poland, and typical lead times are 3 to 4 weeks for large orders. When I say large orders, 50, 100, type pieces.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Good question, James.
One other thing I would very much like to mention about the Rack 18 and the VAV is a new feature that'll be coming out here at the end of the year, version 1.9. We're adding web server support. What does that mean? Well, it means from a browser standpoint and from, say, the touchscreen displays that we referred to earlier, the Rack 18, the VAV, will now be able to output a text type display directly to your browser or touchscreen. So you'll be able to see all of the I/O as values, of course. Any set points you'll be able to change. And so I'm really looking forward to that feature because that means now, particularly for these smaller projects where price is such a big issue, the local users, if you will be able to interact with that controller by just connecting to it from a browser or from one of the touchscreen displays.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, I've been waiting for this for about a year, and I'm when I see you next week, Nicole, you're going to get a complete demonstration of it, and then it's going to come out probably in December.
Great. Any other questions for
Regarding
Steve?
the
Oh, go
regarding the
ahead.
air balancing, for the VAV controller
Yeah.
via the stat, is that relatively simple, intuitive? Can we give it to an air balancer to do on their own, or would we need to be there to support them?
That is the idea, that it's that the balancer can do it from there. The product's new, and I very much am, looking for feedback. So if for some reason we didn't make it as intuitive and as easy as we can, we're going to want to fix that. Okay, it's the best thing I can tell you, because that was the intention. Intention is that that balancers should be able to balance either from the stat or from our standalone tool.
Good questions. Anybody else? We have a few minutes left here. Okay. Well, Steve, again, thank you so much for your time today. And
Of
everybody
course.
else on the line, we really appreciate your time. We know time is money, and we really appreciate it. And if there's any other questions or information that you weren't able to get from here, we do have the follow-up of the dual VAV applications. If there's anything else, please let myself or your local sales reps know. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.